Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranayakaruna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranayakaruna Ganaganatam Praptasa Kalyana Guranavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Praptasa Kalyana Guranavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam 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 Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Kirtananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanema Niramarjanado Dana Nityanana Shringaratanema Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatapi Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Tapi Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Chaturbidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Svatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shangam Chaturbidhashi Kridvaiva trupte bhajato shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Kridvaiva trupte bhajato shadeva Vande Gurashi Shradhikama Davayara para Madhurya Lila Gunarupanamna Pratikshana swa Tanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Pratikshana swa Tanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Ne kunja yuno Ratikari siddhai Jayali viri juktir Apekshaneya Ne kunja yuno Ratikari siddhai Jayali viri juktir Tatrati daksha Atibalavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Tatratidacha Pativalavasam Sakshat Haritena Shamasta Shashre Pruktastathava Vyataiva Sadmi Samasta Shashre Pruktastathava Vyataiva Kintu Prabhorja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Garashi Charanaravrindam Kintu Prabhaja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Garashi Charanaravrindam Vande Garashi Charanaravrindam Vande Garashi Charanaravrindam Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasada Nagati kutapi Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasada Nagati kutapi Dhyayam stubam tasya Yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Dhyayam stubam tasya Yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Dhyayam stubam tasya Yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Yadaye Nama, Krishna Jadavaye Nama, Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaye Nama. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghuna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Rama Shri Radha Nilamadhav Radha Nilamadhav Radhe Radha Nilamadhav Radha Nilamadhav Jayo Jagannath Jayo Baladeva Jayo Subhadrama Jayo Sudarshan Chakra Baladeva Subhadrama Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Nitai Gora Haribo Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo Haribo Nitai Gora Premanande Hari Bo Jai Vishnu Paraparansa Prabha Jakachari Sutara Iskon Pratishta Bhiviti Samsta Pakachari Vaishnav Surumoni Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Data Patita Pavana Abhocharavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Iskon Pratishta Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Dhar Ki Jai Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kuti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Prem Sikho Si Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Premanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinanda Nishman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavrina Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhana Rinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Juga Dharma Hari Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihapnanga Translated Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopakutna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrajabam Vrindavan Mathurdham Ki Jai Delosh Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai Shri Maya Purnavadip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smatip Subhadra Dev Sri Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karu Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Turus Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Bolo Shrimati Radharani Ki Jai Shamaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaurani Pramanande All glories to somebody bodies All glories to somebody bodies All glories to somebody bodies All glories to Shri Guru Shri Gaur
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय
प्रह्लादलाददायिने
प्रह्लादलाददायिने
हिरण्यकशिपुर्वक्षः शीलटङ्कानकालाय
जय शीलटङ्कानकालाय
इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा
इतो नृसिंह परतो नृसिंह
यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा
जय जत जत जामि ततो नृसिंह
बाहिर्नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा
बाहिर्नृसिंह हृदये नृसिंह
नरसिंह अधिं शरणं प्रपदे
नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये
तव करकमलवरे नाका अद्भुत शृङ्गार लालिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
अवकर कमलवरे नाकम् अद्भुत शृङ्गार ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूप जय जगदीश रे जय जगदीश रे जय जगदीश रे
केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता नरहरिरूप जय जगदीश रे जय जगदीश रे जय जगदीश
जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव
जय नृसिंहदेव जय नृसिंहदेव नृसिंहदेव जय नृसिंहदेव
जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय प्रह्लाद महाराज
जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय प्रह्लाद महाराज
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह भगवान की
जय Shri Vrindayi Tulasi Devayi Priyayi Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devayi Priyayi Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devayi Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
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 Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Eya Bilashi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Bilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Eya Bilashi.
Tumi Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Bilasi.
Ye tomara sharanaloy Tara vancha purna hoy.
Je tomara sharanala Tara vancha purna.
Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavana bhasi.
Tumi kripa kori karatare Vrindavana bhasi.
Moraye abilash Bilas kunje diyova.
Moraye abilash Bilas kunje diyova.
Nayane heri bosada Yugala ruparasi.
Aminayane rivo sada Jugala ruparasi.
Hey nivedana daro सखीरनुगात कुरु
निवेदनाधार सखीरनुगात कुरु
सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी
सेवायाधि कर दिए कर निज दासी
दीन कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय
न कृष्ण दास कोई ये न मोरा
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा
गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये नवासी
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी
जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय जय वृंदा देवी
जय वृंदे जय वृंदे जय वृंदे जय श्री वृंदे
जय वृंदे जय वृंदे
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारि देवी Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Praridevi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Praridevi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Jeshmati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of years wishes fulfilled, bestowing myself on him, making resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me residence in Pleasure Grove, Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I would always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg to make me a fellow Kavitans of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me own myself. This very golden and lowly self of Krishna. May I always sing the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikh Hastakam Ki. Vidya Badu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmastam Paramparam Jayati Shri Krishna Namahari Gurahari Jasava Shakti Tatra Pitani Krishna Pada Pita Krishi Tavakita Namapi Durdhaivam Samyajani Nanuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadina Kirtaniya Sadahari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Rajagari Shakamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Kitvayi Oinandatanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Visame Bhava Mudo Kripaya Tava Par Pankajas Titaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galarashrudharaya Bharanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakai Richitam Vapukada Tavanam Agrane Bhavishati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakusha Pravrusa Itam Sunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Asli Shava Padaratam Pinastumam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatata Thaba Viradhatulam Pato Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurati Shri Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life or repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. They are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause the devotion service, birth after birth. O Son of Mahajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? When will the hairs of my body stand on the end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Bhutri. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of the demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures of the sons of Vedic creation. 5. Consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6.
To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting
the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas
as fruitive activities of karma kanda.
9.
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha, kripasindubhyebhya, patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo, namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Shri Nama Om Vishnu Bharagashta Prasthaya Bhuti Samata Bhakti Samata Namaste Saraswati Guru Chani Visesamaskartyosa. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nimitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Prasthaya Bhutali Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutali Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivar Savanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Parmure Namaha Madhur Jvala Premadya Shri Rupanugarapatita Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Abhisidanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shaksharvara Murtaye Vipralambara Sambode Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Virayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Turabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Suratar Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarvaswa Padambojo Radha Madana Mohana Divyad Vindaranya Kalpradumada Hashimad Ratnagira Simhasanastato Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Bihi Sevyamana Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasaran Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Today Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Brahmasmita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nama Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakadasat Masakalpa Riksha Laksa Ritesu Surabhira Palyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kananta Arvinda Dalaytak Sambar Havatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamalyavam Siratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shyamam Chibangalalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Bhasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadi Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamya Vayora Tapi Manasomani Puangamanam Saupwesti Arpapadasim Yabichin Tatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajai Kopya Sora Jaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yaschakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajam Yad Baba Bhavita Dio Manajastaiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayan Busa Suktarya Mevinikama Pratita Stuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavita Abhistabir Yaeva Nivjurupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivsata Klapabuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Devi Yesu Vilokayante Yam Sham Sundaram Achinte Gunaswarupa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menitistam Navaravatarama Karud Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamanyo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti Kotisva Seswa Satadi Vibhuti Vinam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Anasheta Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Stani Sute Trigunya Tad Vishaya Videvitaya Manam Sadva Valambi Parasaplam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasuya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Pritya Lila Yatina Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nishitamni Talechatasya Devi Mahesu Haditama Sute Tete Prabhavini Jaya Vijastaya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Sistista Tipralaya Sadhava Saktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Bhavani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chesta Tesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajam Siram Yata Dada Vikar Sri Yoga Sanjayate Nehitata Pritakasti Hito Yasambutam Apitata Sampaitika Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajam Diparsari Vihita Santanam Abhyapeta Dipayate Vivitetu Samanu Dharma Yastadra Geva Hitcha Vishnu Tayavivati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamam Ya Parkarna Nana Jali Balistisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Surum Kuba Adhara Sakti Madvalami Paransam Vatan Govinda Madi Purisham Yasyai Kanistra Sitakala Matavalamya Shivanti Loma Villaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavisesha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamam Basman Yatasma Sakalation in Jesu Tejas Sriyamti Yaprakatayat Hapitadra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tam Yat Pada Palavi Gambin Daya Kumba Dwande Purnamasama Esa Gradi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasi Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Pusha Agnir Mahiga Kalamabu Marudisascha Kalas Tatma Malasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yancha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamayas Chakshra Esa Savita Sakalagrahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Seshateja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakra Govinda Madi Purisham Dharmoto Papa Chinikaya Vitarasta Tamplas Dharmadi Kita Patakavati Hastajiva Yadata Matu Vibhava Prakada Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajaya Strindra Gopal Matavendra Ahuswakarma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidhati Kintuji Bhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajama Yam Krodha Kamasa Japranayadibiti Vatsalya Moha Guru Guru Sevi Bhava Sanchinti Tasha Sadhusim Tanamaparete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajama Swiyakanta Kanta Parama Purisa Kalpataravu Durmabu Mischitamani Ganama Hitam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chiranandam Jyoti Param Apita Daswadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bishavadi Surabi Vyasti Sumaham Simesar Dakyava Vajitina Hiratrapi Samaya Bajay Srita Dikram Tamaham Iha Golakam Itinam Vidantas Teksantak Sati Viralchara Katibaya Shri Guru Pranama prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing, mercy, singing, and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. To offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in temple where Sri Sri Radha and Krishna also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet, such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is liquor, drunk, and stuff. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Gita, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet, as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he has assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal love and interest within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I shall always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text number 10. Kala Magda Salvadin. Anikai Rudata Puram Ajiganat Swayam Divyam Swapum Samteja Adisat Kala Yavana Magda, the king of Magda, Jarasandha, Salva, King Salva, Adin, and others, Anikai, by the soldiers, Rudata, being encircled, Puram, the city of Mathura, Ajiganat, killed, Swayam, personally, divyam, transcendental, swapumsam, of his own men, teja, prowess, adisat, exhibited. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Kala Yavana, the king of Magadha, and Salva attacked the city of Mathura, but when the city was encircled by their soldiers, the Lord refrained from killing them personally, just to show the power of His own men. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. After the death of Kamsa, when Mathura was encircled by the soldiers of Kala Yavana, Jarasandha, and Salva, the Lord seemingly fled from the city, and thus He is known as Ranchur, or one who fled from fighting. Actually, the fact was that the Lord wanted to kill them through the agency of His own men. Devotees like Muchakunda and Bhima, Kala Yavana, and the king of Magadha were killed by Muchakunda and Bhima, respectively, who acted as agents of the Lord. By such acts, the Lord wanted to exhibit the prowess of His devotees, as if He were personally unable to fight, but His devotees could kill them. The relationship of the Lord with His devotees is a very happy one. Actually, the Lord descended at the request of Brahma in order to kill all the undesirables of the world, but to divide the share of glory He sometimes engaged His devotees to take the credit. The battle of Kurukshetra was designed by the Lord Himself, but just to give credit to His devotee Arjuna, Nimitta Matrabhava Savyasachin, He played the part of the charioteer, while Arjuna was given the chance to play the fighter, and thus became the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra. What He wants to do Himself by His transcendental plans, He executes through His confidential devotees. That is the way of the Lord's mercy toward His pure, unalloyed devotees. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Kali Yavana, the king of Magadha, and Salva attacked the city of Mathura. But when the city was encircled by their soldiers, the Lord refrained from killing them personally, just to show the power of His own men. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is a very interesting pastime of the Lord. And here we see how Krishna always wants to glorify His pure devotees. And He does that by assuming a subordinate position to His pure devotees. And thus, they do superhuman things by the mercy of the Lord, and they are glorified, and rightfully so, because it's a rare thing for someone to be a pure devotee. There are many mixed devotees, but very few pure devotees. So here we see that Krishna is born in a Kshatriya family, but he was raised in a Vaishya family. Nanda Maharaj, Yasodamai. So most people considered Krishna not a Vaishya, not a Kshatriya, but just a Vaishya. So the Kshatriyas were thought that there's nothing to defeat him, because he's not really trained as a Kshatriya. He's just a Vaishya, a cow tender, not a real fighter. So therefore, with those misconceptions, many demons were killed by Krishna and Balaram. So we see that the real enemy in life, as opposed to what the Christians and Muslims and Jews say, they say the real enemy of life is the devil. But the real enemy of life is misconceptions about who Krishna is. And therefore, these misconceptions take a person from the glories of being related to Krishna to becoming enemies of Krishna. And they try and kill him. And of course, they get crushed in the process. And therefore, what we should be very careful about are misconceptions in our lives. And therefore, how do misconceptions take place? The first and major misconception is to identify with the body rather than the soul. That's number one. That's the big ticket item. And then from there, we begin to misidentify with many things. And we think that we are a proprietor, that we are a controller, that we can be a dominator, that we can control nature, that we can improve nature. Say, all those type of concepts are misconceptions, and it gets people into trouble. And ultimately, they think that the more sins they commit, the more powerful they become. So this was the position. This is a position of demons. The worse sins that they commit, the more power they develop. But they never realize that pure devotee is the most powerful person, and not by committing sins, but by doing good acts, acts that are beneficial to others. And the highest benefit is to teach another person to become Krishna conscious. So here we see diametrically different worldviews, and therefore the enemy is the person who puts a misconception or presents a misconception to others. Those are real enemies in life. They are demons. They want purposely to mislead people, and thus get them trapped by the laws of karma. They themselves are trapped by the laws of karma. Right? So you see, even in English we have the phrase, crime doesn't pay. That means that eventually a criminal is going to get caught and punished. And we see that. For sometimes the criminals get away with things, but eventually they get caught and punished. And if they don't get caught and punished, then they get punished really much worse by Yamaraj. So it's actually a good thing to be punished in this life before you die. Because if you go through this life without being punished for sinful acts, then Yamaraj doubles down, triples down, quadruples down the sinful reactions and gives untold type of suffering to people like that. So there are many things that are sinful. Like, for example, a father who abandons his wife and children becomes a very sinful person. A mother who abandons her child and husband becomes a very sinful person. See? Nowadays, that's a very common thing, the divorce. Divorce used to be very difficult. Nowadays, it's extremely easy, especially in the state of Washington. You don't have to have a reason for a divorce in the state of Washington anymore. You can just say, I just want to divorce this person. And you don't have to prove that they were, unfaithful or they were mean or anything. Of course, they bring those points up also, but you don't need to have those reasons anymore. In Washington State, anybody can get a divorce. They just say, I want to get a divorce. That's it. Right? So we see how the whole culture has changed to such a point that sin is supported by the government. Sins are supported by the government. Before, sins were not allowed, right? So therefore, this is a very dangerous time to be in this world, because everything is directed toward making you a sinner, to violating the laws of nature, violating Dharma. Laws of nature, Dharma, and the laws of Krishna, they're all the same thing. They're synonymous. There's no difference between them. They're all the same. So, therefore, here we see the most misled or most illusioned people. They were Kalyavana. He was a king of Magadha, Salva, and Jarasandha. They're the most confused, the most misled, the ones that have the most misunderstanding of what life is all about who Krishna is. And they all were convinced that they could kill Krishna, and they could kill Balaram, and they could invade Mathura and subjugate it. And at that time, so there's an interesting point we're going to hear about now. At that time, Mathura and Dwarka were connected. They were part of the same kingdom. And therefore, we're going to read some wonderful things now from the Krishna book. Let me just get the right page here. Okay. So this attempt to kill Krishna has been going on for a very long time. And such rascals like Jarasandha, 18 times he attacked Dwarka. 18 times. 17 times he was terribly defeated. But each time, Krishna let him go. Although all his soldiers died 17 times. So he kept getting new armies and coming back. On the 18th time, he joined, he attacked Mathura, and this time there were 2 or 3 attacks simultaneously on 2 or 3 armies simultaneously surrounded Mathura and were going to attack it. So Salva had his army, Jarasandha had his army, and also, what's his name? Kalyavana had his army. So in order to spare Mathura from being, let's say, overrun by 3 different armies, Krishna and Balaram left Mathura. And they were so beautiful, right? The beauty of Krishna and Balaram is unparalleled. They just walked through the armies of Kalyavana, Jarasandha, and Salva, and they were like mesmerized by the beauty. Then they realized, oh my God, we just let these guys walk away. So they forgot about Mathura, and they started pursuing Krishna and Balaram. And that's why Krishna has received the name Ranchur, one who leaves the battlefield. A Kshatriya never leaves the battlefield. The Kshatriyas, they either win a battle or they lose a battle. If they lose a battle, they're killed. If they win a battle, they subdue all the others. So, but a Kshatriya, real Kshatriyas, never run away from a fight. Right? Now, why did Krishna run away and Balaram run away? Well, they wanted to trick these demons. And one by one, they killed those demons. And they had, already 17 times Krishna killed all of Kalyavana's soldiers. 17 times he came back with new soldiers. And 16 times he came back with new soldiers. And each time they were all killed by Krishna. And every time he pardoned Jarasandha. So the 18th time, because there was such huge 3-pronged attack on Mathura, to avoid putting all the people in Mathura into deep anxiety, Krishna walks away as if he's a coward. Right? He's not a coward. He's going to glorify his devotees. So I'm going to read some things now. So let's see. Yeah. I'm sorry, 1 second. Let me get to the right page again. I lost the page. Okay. So it begins in the chapter, Krishna erects the Dwarka fort. So this Jarasandha is a big rascal, and he confronts Krishna and Balaram. And Jarasandha surrounds Mathura. So it says, when all the soldiers of Jarasandha had been killed, and he was the only one left alive, certainly he was very much depressed. Shri Balarama immediately arrested him with great strength, just as one lion captures another. But while Lord Balaram was binding Jarasandha with the rope of Varuna, an ordinary ropes also, Lord Krishna, with a greater plan in mind for the future, asked Lord Balaram not to arrest him. So this is the first time Jarasandha attacks Mathura. Right? Krishna then released Jarasandha. As a great fighting hero, Jarasandha was ashamed, and he decided that he would no longer live as a king, but would resign from his position in the royal order and go to the forest to practice meditation under severe austerities and penances. As he was returning home with his royal friends, however, they advised him not to retire, but to regain strength to fight again with Krishna in the near future. So here's a parallel thing between Jarasandha and Kamsa. Kamsa also, when instead of killing Krishna, he is shocked that the eighth child of Vasudeva and Devaki is not a boy; it's a little girl. It was supposed to be Krishna, right? But he disregards that and grabs that little girl and tries to dash her head and her body on the ground and kill her. And she jumps out of his hands and goes up in the sky and manifests this horrible form of Kali Mata. Now Kamsa was a worshipper of Durga. Now this is one of the most terrible forms of Durga. She has 108 different forms. And Kali Mata, that's a red tongue that's sticking out of her mouth, and she's got all these weapons, and she's ferocious and scares the heck out of Jarasandha, although he knows it's his worshipable deity, but this particular form is very scary. And she tells him, "You rascal, Krishna is far away now, and he's going to kill you as is prophesied." So this, completely disheartens and freaks out the Kamsa, and he becomes very introspective and very defeated. And then he apologizes to Devaki and Vasudeva, and he lets them out of prison. Right, and he apologized to him that he killed their first 6 kids, and the 7th kid appeared to be a miscarriage, but actually it was Balaram who was transferred from the womb of Yasodamai to Rohini Devi, who was one of the wives of Nanda Maharaj. Okay, so then Jarasandha, in the same way, he gets totally defeated by Balaram and Krishna, who kill all his soldiers and take him a prisoner. And of course, Balaram was ready to kill him, and Krishna pardons the man. But why? Because it says here, Lord Krishna, with a greater plan in mind for the future, asked Lord Balaram not to arrest him. Krishna then released Jarasandha. So now Jarasandha is ashamed. He wants to resign as king and live as a mendicant in the forest and a yogi, whatever. But on the way back, after being defeated, some of the people who were still left alive, they convinced him, wait a minute, no, don't do this. You're a king. You cannot go in the forest and become a yogi. You just get another army. This time we'll go back and kill Krishna and Balaram. So in the same way, Kamsa, after apologizing, after liberating Vasudeva and Devaki, when he goes back to his kingdom, his friends, who are all demons, convince him that no, don't be disheartened. We'll get that Krishna this time. So both of them, because of bad association. Now, what was the verse yesterday that we read? That was so it was, no, it wasn't yesterday. It's before that. Yeah, so it says, Narakasura, the son of Daritri, the earth, tried to grasp the whole sky, and for this he was killed by the Lord in a fight. His mother then prayed to the Lord. This led to the return of the kingdom to the son of Naraka. Okay. So it says, The purport says, it is said in other Puranas that Narakasura was the son of Daritri, the earth, by the Lord himself, but he became a demon due to the bad association of Banasura, another demon. An atheist is called a demon. And it is a fact that even a person born of good parents can turn into a demon by bad association. There it is. Even it is a fact that even a person born of good parents can turn into a demon by bad association. Birth is not always the criterion of goodness, unless and until one is trained by the culture of good association. One cannot become good. So it's not only one is born good, one has to also be trained to be good, right? And if they're trained to be bad by associating with demons, they become a demon, even though they have good parents and good family and good lineage. So this is, therefore, association is the most important thing. If you say to me, what's the most important thing? And you're thinking, oh, well, he's going to say chanting Hare Krishna. No, that's not the most important thing. Most important thing is good association. The association of genuine devotees. Because if you associate with genuine devotees, you'll always chant Hare Krishna. And if you avoid the association of really good devotees and chant on your own, and every once in a while associate with demons, eventually you'll stop chanting. So the most important thing is good association with devotees who actually strictly follow the regulative principles, not devotees who follow 3 of the principles or 2 of the principles or 1 of the principles. You have to follow all 4 of them with the most diligence and seriousness. So here it says, in this way, Jarasandha, the king of Magadha province, having lost all his strength and having been insulted by his arrest and subsequent release, could do nothing but return to his kingdom. Thus, Lord Krishna conquered the soldiers of Jarasandha. Although Krishna's army was tiny in comparison to Jarasandha's, not a pinch of his strength was lost, whereas all of Jarasandha's men were killed. The denizens of heaven were very much pleased and offered their respects by chanting in glorification of the Lord and showering him with flowers, accepting the victory with great appreciation. Jarasandha returned to his kingdom, and Mathura city was saved from the danger of imminent attack. The citizens of Mathura organized the combined services of professional singers like Sutas and Magadhas, along with poets who could compose nice songs, and began to chant the victory, glorification of Lord Krishna. When Lord Krishna entered the city after the victory, many bugles, conchas, and kettle drums sounded, and the vibrations of various musical instruments like beris, turiyas, veenas, flutes, and mridangas all joined together to make a beautiful reception. While Krishna was entering, the whole city was cleansed. All the different streets and roads were sprinkled with water, and the inhabitants, being joyous, decorated their respective houses with shops with flags and festoons. The Brahmanas chanted Vedic mantras at numerous places. The people constructed road crossings and gates at entrances to lanes and the streets. When Lord Krishna was entering the nicely decorated city of Mathura in a festive attitude, the ladies and girls of Mathura prepared different kinds of flower garlands to make the ceremony most auspicious. In accordance with the Vedic custom, they took yogurt mixed with fresh green grass and strewed it here and there to make the victory jubilation even more auspicious. As Krishna passed through the streets, all the ladies and women regarded him with eyes bright with great affection. Krishna and Balarama carried various kinds of ornaments, jewels, and other booty carefully collected from the battlefield and presented it all to King Ugrasena. Krishna thus offered his respects to his grandfather because Ugrasena was at that time the crown prince of the Yadu dynasty. So, Jarasandha is completely defeated. Now, what happens? Jarasandha, the king of Magadha, besieged the city of Mathura, nor not only once, but 17 times, in the same way, equipped with the same number of military phalanxes. Each and every time he was defeated, and all his soldiers were killed by Krishna, and each time he had to return home disappointed. Each time the princely order of the Yadu dynasty arrested Jarasandha in the same way, and again released him in an insulting manner, and each time Jarasandha shamelessly returned home. While Jarasandha was attempting his 18th attack, a Yavana king, somewhere to the south of Mathura, became attracted by the opulence of the Yadu dynasty and also attacked the city. It is said that the king of the Yavanas, known as Kalayavana, was induced to attack by Narada. So these demons, or Yavanas, so Yavanas are people who are against the Vedic culture, and Malechas are people who follow the Vedic culture but deviated and became demons. So the Greeks are the Malechas, and the Turks are the Yavanas. So therefore the Greeks, the Turks, and they're all sons of Yayati, and he had other sons also. He had 5 sons altogether. They were all part of the Vedic culture, but they deviated. The Yavanas, right from the beginning, were against the Vedic culture, and the Greeks deviated from it, became demons. And then you have other groups of people, 3 others. One was the Yadus, one was the Kurus, and the 5th one were like Mongolians and Chinese type of people, right? So this Yayati was a great Prajapati. And okay, so Narada Muni induces this Kalyavana, who's the king of the Yavanas. This story is narrated in the Vishnu Purana. Once Garga Muni, the priest of the Yadu dynasty, was taunted by his brother-in-law, Taunted, meaning there was like taunted means like harassed. And when the kings of the Yadu dynasty heard the taunt, they laughed at him. And Garga Muni became angry at the Yadu kings. He decided that he would produce someone who would be very fearful to the Yadu dynasty. So he pleased Lord Shiva and received from him the benediction of a son. He begot this son, Kalyavana, in the wife of a Yavana king. This Kalyavana inquired from Narada, who are the most powerful kings in the world? Narada informed him that the Yadus were the most powerful. Thus informed, Kalyavana attacked the city of Mathura at the same time that Jarasandha tried to attack it for the 18th time. Kalyavana was very eager to declare war on a king of the world who would be a suitable combatant for him, but he had not found any. However, being informed about Mathura by Narada, he thought it wise to attack this city with 30 million Yavana soldiers. Imagine that, 30 million, right? So this Kalyavana was a complete idiot. He's looking for the most powerful person in the universe to fight, right? He wants to fight with someone who's the most powerful, thinking that he can kill him. So he's seeking to kill Krishna, basically, right? When Mathura was thus besieged, Lord Sri Krishna began to consider, in consultation with Baladev, how much the Yadu dynasty was in distress. So there's another point here I just want to make clear. It's about Garga Muni, is the priest of the Yadu dynasty. But he was taunted. Look at that word, Taunted. I think it means ridiculed. Yeah.
Yeah, ridiculed, jeered.
Right. So he gets basically the priest of the Yadu dynasty gets taunted and by his brother-in-law. But then the some of the kings of the Yadus dynasty, when they heard this ridicule of Gargamuni, they laughed at him. See, now it's very dangerous to do a thing like that. Laughing at a priest who's, he might not be an absolute pure devotee, but still he's a highly respectable person. And he was the priest of the Yadus, right? And they laughed. So he took revenge and produced a son, Kalyavana, with a Yavana woman. And then Kalyavana becomes king of the Yavanas. And he puts all the kings of the Yadu dynasty in deep distress, right? So that was, you see how there are many stories similar to this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where you see that people who want to take revenge, they don't do it overnight. They might prepare a whole generation. They might wait an entire generation to get the revenge. So therefore, no one should ever gloat. Look that word up, G-L-O-A-T. That means become very proud and happy of defeating someone else. They should never gloat over their victory, because people see that and they decide, I'm going to take revenge. And they might wait 1 or 2 generations before they take revenge. All that time, the victors think, oh, well, we beat them, and we're the machos, but little by little, they wait until the previous victors get weakened by usually gluttony and sense gratification and overestimation of themselves, and then in their weak moment, they attack them. But it could be 1 or 2 or even 3 generations later, you see. So we should never gloat. What does it mean?
So either contemplating or dwelling on one's own success, or another one's misfortune with a malignant pleasure.
With what? Malignant.
Malignant.
Malignant means sick.
Intentionally.
Very, very low class. So, you see, you can learn real etiquette and learn so many things by carefully reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we're doing, and understand the mistakes that one can make in life, right? So, therefore, when you read the qualities of a pure devotee, let me just read. We'll see that in the 16th chapter, 1st to 3rd verse. The first quality of a pure devotee is abhayam sattva samsudhir. So he's not afraid, and he's always engaged in purification of his existence by practicing strictly Krishna consciousness. And the first thing about education is given in the 13th chapter, 8th to 11th verse, and the first point is amanitvam, humility. So anyone who's trying to be educated, the first quality and most important quality is humility. Amanitvam. And what does it say about humility? In the purport to 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12. As for humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. See, it's a deception. It's a misunderstanding of who we should be, right? people are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, and that's what we're learning now by reading Bhagavatam carefully, without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles, and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. But he becomes a religious tormentor. Say. As for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. So, Amanitvam, Adamitvam, Ahimsa, Santir, Arjavam. So there's 18 principles of real education explained in 13th chapter, 8 to 12. Anything besides those 18 principles is called ignorance. And you'll see what is called ignorance is what kids are studying today and being taught. Right? So you should read the chapter 13, verses 8 to 12, and learn what real knowledge is. And anything other than that is actually ignorance. Okay, so, and then the first quality of a genuine devotee is abhayam, not fearful. What was Prabhupada's name? Abhaya Charanaravinda. Abhaya means brave and not fearful. Charanaravinda is always surrendered at the lotus feet of the Lord. So what a beautiful name his father gave him, right? Okay. So, and then secondly, why is one fearless? Because he knows, I have an eternal soul. I'm not this body. So no one can actually kill me. See? And death is only a death to the material body. It's not death to the soul. The soul doesn't die. It's fully eternal. And then the second thing is purification of one's existence. So one does not do anything that defiles his existence, but he only does things that purify his existence. Right? So instead of going to Disneyland, he goes to Ratha Yatra. Instead of going to places where people are eating meat, gambling, intoxicating, what is that place? Las Vegas. Right? Instead of going there. Well, of course, if you go to Las Vegas to visit our temple, that's okay. Right? We have a temple in Las Vegas. But if you go to Las Vegas to go, there's another temple started by the Hindus that has a casino in the temple. You don't want to go to temples like that. They do that to support their pujas, which are all materialistic anyway. So, but the ISKCON temple doesn't have a casino. It doesn't have any what do you call those things? Slot machines in the entrance, right? One time I took a flight to Los Angeles, but it had a stopover in Reno, Nevada. And I've never been to Nevada, right? I've never been to Las Vegas. So, but Reno is also the same thing as Las Vegas. So as soon as you step off of the airplane, and you take one step off the airplane, you're directly in the waiting place, right, where you have to wait for the next flight. There's a lady there, and she has a cart with all these buckets, and the buckets are full of, I think they were quarters. And I didn't understand what was going on. But there was this one lady in front of me. She was a Asian lady, probably from Cambodia or Laos, one of those places. And she stops, right? She takes one step and stops, and she buys a whole bucket of quarters. And I was thinking, what is she going to do with this? She walks in, and the first slot machine, she stops, sits down, puts a quarter in it, pulls the lever, and she stayed there. I mean, the stayover was 1 hour. She stayed there for an hour, nonstop, putting quarters and pushing the lever. And she won. And she started screaming like a Cambodian duck that's being pursued by a tiger, like that, she went crazy. I never heard anything like that. Now, and when she calmed down, she went back to putting quarters, and then they called the flight, and I just kept watching her, guys. She was a yogi. She was like focused on that slot machine. She didn't look at anyone else. She didn't talk to anyone else. She just kept hitting that slot machine with quarters. And then they called the flight, and then they give the last call. So I got up, and I walked to get checked in to fly to Las Vegas. She still didn't come. So some of the people from that flight, the attendants, they came out and they said, "Lady, this is your flight." She said, "I don't want to go." I said, "No, you have to go. It's your flight." "I don't want to go." Yeah, she refused to go. You see how crazy people become with gambling? So all these things are sinful. There's gambling, intoxication, meat eating, illicit activities. One leads to the other. One leads to the other. You do one of those, you end up doing all four of them. So therefore, we have to be very, very careful. Otherwise, our whole attention goes to gambling on the stock market. The stock market is gambling also. Or gambling in the slot machine, or gambling in the, buy this property and then try and sell it for more. There are all types of gambling in a sense. Whereas devotees, they try and avoid all that because, like one time, a friend of mine offered me, this is years ago when they were selling, when the government was giving in a competition cell phone tower licenses. They did not want to give it to the big companies. They're letting any citizen enter in this contest. What kind of contest was it? You had to put up $60,000, and then you could, and then they're going to draw names from they're going to randomly draw people's names, and those people get so it's basically gambling, right? So my friend, who's a very smart guy, he offered me, he said, "Look, give me $10,000 and you can be a partner." He was getting money from a couple people, but not like 10, 20 people. It's like 3 or 4 people, and I was a good friend of his. So he offered me that. He knew I had a lot of money at that time. And I said, "No, I don't want to do it." He said, "Why not?" He said, "This is smart gambling. If you try and win the lottery, there are millions of people in the lottery. But this is a very exclusive lottery. You have to put up $60,000. So there's going to be a small number of people in this lottery. And we have a good chance of winning." I said, "I know, but that's what I'm afraid of." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "If we win, look, I just gave up my business in France. I came to the United States to be a member of the GBC and manage temples. If you win, and we win, I'm going to be drawn into this thing." He said, No, you don't have to do anything. I'll take care of everything." I said, "No, it's not like that. I know what it's like. I'll be drawn into it, and it'll take my attention away from managing temples and following all the rules and regulations and everything. I don't want to do it." He said, "Okay." He won the lottery, and he became a multimillionaire. But his whole life was then managing cell towers, right? And eventually, after about 7 to 10 years, he sold it to one of those big companies. The big companies bought up all those people who got the cell tower rights. And I became a devotee, and he stopped being a devotee. You see what happens? So, I knew if I entered into that and if we won, I would be forced to be involved in the business, right? So we have to be very careful what we do and what the decisions that we make once we're devotees, because our main concern should be to remain a devotee and to have time for practicing Krishna consciousness. It's very easy to deviate. It's very easy to deviate, right? And therefore we have to be very vigilant in the decisions that we make. Okay, so, you see, the Krishna book by Srila Prabhupada is such a powerful, book, because you can stop on one line and look at it carefully, like we just did, and there's a whole encyclopedia in that one line that he wrote, right? So when it says that while Ajarasan was attempting the 18th attack, a Yavana king somewhere to the south of Mathura became attracted by the opulence of the Yadu dynasty and also attacked the city. It is said that the king of the Yavanas, known as Kalyavana, was induced to attack by Narada. This story is narrated in Vishnu Purana. Once Gargamuni, the priest of the Yadu dynasty, was taunted by his brother-in-law. When the kings of the Yadu dynasty heard the taunt, they laughed at him, and Gargamuni became angry at the Yadu kings. He decided that he would produce someone who would be very fearful to the Yadu dynasty. So he pleased Lord Shiva and received from him the benediction of a son. He begot his son, Kalyavana, in the wife of a Yavana king. This Kalyavana inquired from Narada, who are the most powerful kings in the world? And he says the Yadu dynasty. So you see, Gargamuni, although he's a great, let's say, guru in many ways, he was not a pure devotee. Because if he was a pure devotee, he would not have become upset. Because what is the qualities of pure devotees? They're not upset by success or failure. They're not influenced by success, and they're not influenced by failure, right? And we already read that in the 13th chapter, in the 18th qualities of knowledge, or 18 points of knowledge, and it said, tolerance, this is another point, tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. If one is engaged in the advancement of spiritual knowledge, there will be so many insults and much dishonor from others. This is expected because material nature is so constituted. Even a boy like Prahlada, who only 5 years old, was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, was endangered when his father became antagonistic to his devotion. The father tried to kill him. He's only a 5-year-old kid. The father is trying to kill him in many ways, so many ways, but Prahlada tolerated him. So there may be many impediments to making advancement of spiritual knowledge, but we should be tolerant and continue our progress with determination. There's so much wisdom in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and there's no other book of wisdom as complete as these two books. So if you want to be a civilized person, if you want to be a pure devotee, this is the training that we have to get. Not only we're trained in the philosophy, but we're trained in the practice of the philosophy, right? So here, Gargamuni, he was not trained enough to tolerate the taunting of his brother-in-law, or whoever it was, but he didn't punish his brother-in-law. He punished the Yadu kings who laughed at him being taunted by his brother-in-law. You see, you can be a third party, but if you say something, the attention goes from the perpetrator to you. You see how it works? You have to be extremely careful in everything we do in our life. And this has to be taught to our kids. Otherwise, they'll make these mistakes, not being educated properly by their parents. And the first educators of kids are their parents. If the parents are absent, or if they're negligent in educating their kids properly, that is also a sin, and they suffer for it. Okay, we'll stop right there. I didn't even get to read much of that, but there's so much information in this that it's good to hear it, right? Because someone will read, and then you don't really understand anything. Whereas we just stopped on one point, and it opens up a whole encyclopedia of knowledge and wisdom. You see, that's how powerful these books are. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so Maharaj, these examples are phenomenal because I think, particularly when we were young, small actions of frustrating someone or irritating someone,
You
we,
laugh.
we laugh, or we
Or
add to
you
the
say, "Oh, I'm superior to that person. That person just got, blasphemed, but I'm superior to that person." You laugh. I remember when Kennedy was assassinated. So I was just, had just entered college at that time, right? And then the news came out, that Kennedy was assassinated, and I laughed. I remember laughing, and other kids, some kid made a joke, "Oh, what's going to happen to his wife?" So, and then we all snickered, right? It's called snickering. Snickering is that derisive laugh. So, this is dangerous, and it has consequences, right? Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm kind of relating to, I see somewhat of the political side also. If we see right now in the country, it feels like what goes back comes back in a big way. So I think that's a big lesson for all of us, particularly devotees, to make sure that we're not participating in activities that.
Yeah, we should never laugh at somebody else's tragedy or somebody else's, let's say, defeat or anything like that. And if we are successful in getting justice, we shouldn't gloat over it and be proud that this happened. And in other words, we beat somebody who did something wrong to us, and then we went to court and we won the case. We shouldn't gloat. We shouldn't celebrate. Because if a Kshatriya is defeated, and there's an example of this in the Bhagavatam, if a Kshatriya is defeated, they're going to get revenge. But they might do it in a very slow way, and then wait for you to be weak, and then attack you, get revenge. And this is what happened with King Drupada, who was he was a Kshatriya king. And he was defeated by this Brahmana, and he purposely had a son who would kill that Brahmana in the future. The Brahmana was Dronacharya. No, it was it was a Dronacharya. Yeah, and he waited a lifetime to do it. Right? It was always in his mind, I'm going to get revenge, but he did it in a very, and the same thing happened here with this Garga Muni. That's another one. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. See, these are lessons. You can only learn these lessons by carefully hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, because everything is in this book. And Bhagavad Gita, of course. But Bhagavad Gita is the short theory. Bhagavatam is the long, elaborate explanation with many examples. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the root cause of this. All of this is false ego, isn't it?
Yes.
Because we think
thinking that I've dominated. I beat that person or whatever.
But in reality, we're just nimitta matra. We're just like, we happen to be in that spot of maybe either success or.
We should always be very respectful and self-controlled, and not be tricked by Maya into these type of situations where you gloat over success, and then like, for example, when Germany was defeated in World War I, Britain exacted terrible vengeance on Germany, right? That was the reason why Hitler was able to become, elected as the leader of Germany. They elected a crazy man to be, but someone who was militaristic, mean, vengeful, and proud, right? they would never have done that if the British were more kind to them after they were defeated. So when the Americans defeated Japan by throwing an atomic bomb, no one else has ever thrown an atomic bomb before, right? And up until now, no one has used an atomic bomb. It's only America. I wouldn't be surprised if Putin uses an atomic bomb. He said, well, look, the Americans did it. Why can't I do it, right? So anyway, after that terrible defeat of the Japanese, they went very easy on them. They didn't force the emperor to resign, and they were very smart. And it was all MacArthur. He was a very smart man. And he defeated them very badly, and then he took care of them and helped them rebuild, right? And then they've been an ally of the United States since World War II. Although the United States threw an atomic bomb, 2 of them, and killed hundreds of thousands of people, or at least 150,000 people at one time. So you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful how you treat people. Okay. Haribol. Oh, where is it, Prabhupada? So one time, there's a very interesting story. One time there were 2 monkeys that were fighting. And then this little bird was watching them, and the little bird was listening to the argument they were having. And the little bird said something. Both monkeys jumped on the bird and killed it. Right? So the bird didn't do anything, right? But just because the bird was watching them and then said something, they both stopped fighting and they killed the bird. So you got to be very, very careful in this world. Very, very careful. Okay, go ahead. That's a story in the Panchatantra. Go ahead. Wait a minute.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bando Mui Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Bai E Baba Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti ho ja hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya Arana kori ho mane asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise yo tamaagati. जय प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा. चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से. चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से. दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो. प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते. प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते. वेद गाय जहर चरितो. श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जैनार बंधु. लोकेना लोकेर जीवाना. हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया. एवे जात घोषिक त्रिभुवाना. श्रीला प्रभुपाद पतित पावना. जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने. नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे. निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पश्चात्देशतारिणे. नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे. निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पश्चात्देशतारिणे. जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा नित्य गौर हरि बोल।